Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another EU book review. And today we are finally going to review the novelization of the very first Star Wars movie ever released. Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. And this book was published in 1978, clocks in at 220 pages, and it does include 16-page photo insert with images and some descriptions from the movie. Now, we're not going to talk about the plot of Star Wars. If you haven't seen Star Wars and you don't know the plot of Star Wars, I would recommend stopping this video and going to watch Star Wars. This book does not deviate much from the plot of the movie. It is almost a beat-by-beat recreation of what we saw on screen. There are some minor differences and a few additions that were included in the book that were not included in the movie, because this book was written off of an earlier script that Lucas had written and not the final shooting script of the movie. So we're not going to talk about the plot of the story or the plot of the book, but we will talk about the differences between the movie and this book, and we will pepper in a couple of fun facts throughout the video about the very first Star Wars. And the very first fun fact for Star Wars is that if you notice, there is no A New Hope. There is just Star Wars. Because in the very beginning, Star Wars was the name of the movie and not the name of the franchise. See, Lucas didn't even know if this movie was going to go anywhere. This could have been a colossal flop. So he really wasn't thinking about franchises and episode numbers and different subtitles. So we just got Star Wars. Now, eventually, that will become the overall name and umbrella name for the franchise. But in the beginning, it was just Star Wars. And they did not add the subtitle A New Hope or the words Episode 4 until they re-released Star Wars in theaters in 1981, right after they released The Empire Strikes Back, which was marketed as Episode 5. So if you were to see Star Wars in the original, day one, in the opening crawl, it would not say Episode 4 and it would not say A New Hope. And that was added later when Lucas finally realized my series and my franchise is going to come to fruition. This is a really cool cover, by the way. I like these old style covers of books. So let's talk about the book. Now, it does say here, George Lucas. That's the only name on here. Sometimes it'll say something like Star Wars, story by George Lucas. Even though George Lucas's name is on the book, fun fact number 2, George Lucas didn't write this book. This book was ghostwritten by George Lucas's friend and science fiction writer of the time, Alan Dean Foster. So Alan Dean Foster is actually responsible for writing this actual book. And he's the same author that George asked to write a sequel, sort of a grade B sequel to Star Wars, which wound up becoming Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Because, see, George figured that if Star Wars was going to flop in the theaters, then he could at least write or produce a grade B sequel of sorts. And so he asked Alan Dean Foster to write that sequel for him. So in case this flopped, he would have something that he could then film and produce as a sequel. Low budget, grade B, just sort of low-key movie. And so Alan Dean Foster did. He wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and he also wrote the novelization of Star Wars. And it's a good thing, too, because I don't know how George writes, but this is actually a pretty good book. Alan Dean Foster is a pretty good writer, and this was actually a lot of fun to read. The beats are there, the action is there, everything goes along as it does in the movie. But the dialogue is better. Some of the action sequences I feel are better. I feel it's sort of put together a little bit better than the movie. It sort of fills in some of the blanks that the movie sort of leaves out and sort of fleshes it out a bit better. And I will say that I do enjoy the dialogue in this book a lot more than the dialogue in the movie. There's more of it, right? There's more of the dialogue here than what we got in A New Hope in the film. And the dialogue in the book just feels a little more natural. Now, that could be in part because of the delivery of the actors, or it could just be that it's just better sounding dialogue. But I enjoyed it a lot more than the movie. So let's talk about some of the differences in the movie, in the book from the movie. And there's not a lot. A lot of the differences in the book are cosmetic, meaning characters are described differently. Specifically and especially C-3PO and R2-D2. They are described very, very different in the book than what we actually see in the movie. C-3PO is more human looking, a lot more human looking than he was in the movie, meaning that he has the face of a human, ears, eyes. He is supposed to be a human stand-in, so he does look the part. And R2 is he's still a little barrel-chested robot, but instead of rolly wheels like he wound up, he had 3 clawfoot legs that he kind of stomped around on. So the characters are described differently. Some of the background characters are described differently. Some of the maybe some of the ships and some of the set pieces are described differently. Luke is in Blue Squadron in the book instead of Red Squadron. He's Blue 5, which kind of threw me a little bit. I'm like, no, he's Red 5. But so they changed that for the movie, or they changed it for the book. He was Blue Squadron originally. Contrary to popular belief, we can finally end the argument right now, because in the book, Han shoots first. Very clearly, Han shoots Greedo first. In the book, it's very well done, well described that Greedo was shot point blank. So we can finally put that argument to rest and to bed. I don't care what changes Lucas made to that scene in the special editions. Han did, and will always forever shoot first. The lightsaber battles, of course, in the book are a lot more intricate than they were in the movie, right? Because you can describe things in a book easier than you could actually film them. And while the lightsaber scenes between Obi-Wan and Vader, and then the lightsaber scenes with Obi-Wan in the Mos Eisley Cantina, while they feel a little short and stilted and kind of blocky, they're not described that way in the books. Actually, in the Mos Eisley Cantina, Obi-Wan is a beast, because not only does he chop off Ponda Baba's arm like he does in the movie, but he also slices 2 other people in half and almost kills the one guy who goes up to Luke and says, he don't like you. So there's a bigger body count in the book. Obi-Wan, a lot more vicious, a lot more dead people in the cantina than what was shown in the movie. I thought it was a lot better. I thought it showed lightsaber what they can do better. And then the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader in the book was more intricate, more acrobatic, more fluid than what we got in the movie. And that's fine, right? Because at this point, they had not really established how lightsaber battles worked. They hadn't put the choreography and all of the different things into it that will come later. It was very much like an old style medieval sword fight, clang, clang kind of stuff, stiff and blocky. But the book does a much better job of showing us what it could have looked like. And unlike the book, Alan Dean Foster corrects a very, very large oversight in the movie, because in the book, at the end of the book, Chewie gets a medal. So to all the people who are rightfully pissed off that Chewie did not get a medal at the end of the movie, only Han and Luke got a medal, you can rest assured that Alan Dean Foster corrected that oversight, and Chewbacca does in fact get his own medal in the book. That made me happy to read that. I'm like, good. Somebody is acknowledging the fact that Chewbacca was also responsible for what happened. So what else was a little bit different in the novel? Well, we get to see more of Luke's backstory a little bit at the beginning. We get to see more of his friends. We see him going into Anchorhead and going to meet up with his friends. Luke actually does have a friend group, in addition to Biggs, which we did see in the special edition. Biggs Darklighter, that's his best friend. But he also has friends like, he's got Fixer and Cammy and Windy and Deke. And those are all his friends that he meets up with in Tashi Station and Anchorhead and yada yada and all that stuff. They even have a cute nickname for him. They call him Wormy. So from now on, if you watch the original Star Wars movies, just know that at one point, Luke had a nickname from his friends called Wormy. So we get to see a lot of sort of that interaction in the book. I can see why that was chopped from the movie, because it doesn't really propel anything forward. It just shows Luke's life and his friends and where he's at and what he does and how he feels like he's stuck in the desert and he can't get out. So it may have been rightfully cut. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am mistaken, somebody will correct me, but I think in some of the releases, the Blu-ray releases or some of the DVD releases, there may actually be deleted scenes of Luke with his friends in Anchorhead that had been filmed that were eventually cut. So we see that. That's the difference. The Jabba and Han scene that did wind up in the special edition, the god-awful CGI of Jabba that wound up in the special editions of the movie where he's confronting Han in the docking bay, that is in the book. That's always been in the book. It's always been in the movie. Lucas just couldn't figure out how to film a giant slug with what he had at the time. So that was cut until we got that really terrible CGI from the special editions. That was pretty much it for what was added. Very, very little was added that wasn't in the Star Wars movie. Like I say, there was a lot of dialogue that was different. There was a lot of background changes because at the time, Lucas hadn't fleshed out a lot of the idea of, he hadn't fleshed out that the Emperor was also a Sith and that the Empire was under Sith control, and he hadn't fleshed out Vader's backstory, and there was a lot of background that either wasn't there or was different slightly because it hadn't been fleshed out yet. So we're not gonna ding that for anything because it is what it is. It was 1977, and they're trying to make a movie that they hope is going to just do well. And so they probably weren't putting a lot of effort into the background, which makes sense. And that's also why the first Star Wars movie feels like a complete movie, right? It feels like a complete movie. You've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you have a satisfying end. They blow up the Death Star, and the insinuation is that either the Empire is severely crippled at that point, or they're going to use that momentum to overturn the Empire. So if we never got another Star Wars movie, at least the very first one was a complete movie. There were no cliffhangers. There were no twists. There were no plot twists. There were no, things that were put out there shocking that would be answered in sequels. It was just a movie. Beginning, middle, and an end. And if it went nowhere after that, at least you would have had, and we would have had, a really good sci-fi movie. It wasn't until later that, of course, they began to flesh everything out. So, yeah. Oh, and my last fun fact, which I almost forgot to tell you. The last fun fact of the book is, have you ever wondered where R2-D2 got his name from? R2-D2. R2-D2 is actually a film terminology. It stands for Reel 2 Dialogue 2, and it's when you're looking for canisters of film. It's something that Lucas had heard on the set of THX 1138 when they were looking to go over some film that they had, some footage that they had filmed. Somebody said, go get me Reel 2 Dialogue 2, R2-D2. And that's where he got the name for our most chattiest robot. And the joke has always been, who is the most vulgar character to ever show up in any movie ever? And the answer is R2, because all of his lines are bleeped out. Funny. So guys, that is my review of Star Wars: A New Hope. I gave it a 4 on Goodreads. I think it's a good book. I do. I enjoyed it. I liked the action sequences. I liked the set pieces. I liked the dialogue. Felt a little more natural. Vader felt a little more menacing. Everything just sort of meshed a little bit better together. So if you have not read this, and believe me, you can find this book and Empire and Jedi in dozens of forms and dozens of volumes. They're out all over the place. Out in single format, in omnibus format. There's collections, there's single ones. Pick one up, take a read. It's a decent book. It's a decent sci-fi book, and it is a really decent Star Wars book. So that is my review of Star Wars sans The New Hope. And the next book that we are going to be reading in this journey is one of my personal favorites, and that is going to be the book Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. It is a collection of short stories by different sci-fi authors about the different beings and denizens of the Mos Eisley Cantina. I think there's about 20 stories in it, and I really enjoyed them. I really liked those stories because it really gave life to the people that we see very briefly in the Mos Eisley Cantina. So guys, that is my review of A New Hope. What did you think of it? What did you think of A New Hope? Either the book or the movie. Did you read the book? Did you like the book? What are your thoughts? Comment below. Let me know. And as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Give it a share. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell the 1 or 2 people that may have never seen Star Wars at all in their lifetime. And as always, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And I will see you in the next review.